if this thing works, if this team works, Anthony Edwards might have to be the point guard. And that's the very intriguing yet super scary thing when talking about this team's trajectory, because I don't know about you, I haven't heard a peep from the Anthony Edwards camp this summer. The only thing we've heard about is Anthony Edwards running up floors at Target Field in the middle of July. And besides that, it's just been peep silent. How do you feel about Anthony Edwards and his progression next season, and how much of that needs to be as a primary point guard in the Shea mold?
I don't think he'll ever be a Shea level point guard. He doesn't have that natural feel for just reading a defense. Like, part of the reason Mike Conley is so good with Ant is because a lot of times Mike Conley helps explain what the defense is doing, and then Ant goes, "Oh, that makes sense," and then starts playing better. He even joked about Dante doing the same thing, where Dante will take him aside and be like, "Here's where the pressure is coming from. Here's where you need to go." Now, that being said, Ant was also not a natural shooter 2 years ago, and then had statistically the best non-hardened Steph volume 3-point shooting season ever. So I'm not ruling anything out that he could come in next year and just be Steve Nash, and then what do you do? But I think ideally, if you're looking at this Wolves team, his usage is probably in that 30 to 35% range, which is your Luka Doncic, your Giannis, your Jokic, like a heavy amount of decision making that he's in charge of. And if he is able to take that step, it does make a lot of things easier, because then Mike can just hide him on defense, throw him in the corner. He's a really good corner shooter. And like, he seems to rise to most occasions. You could also, like you were saying, start TJ. Dante could start next to him, and then you just have Dante coming off of pin downs. I think if I were to say what ideally could happen for this Wolves team, for me, it's Rob needs to be good, and not, he doesn't need to be great. He doesn't need to be a Hall of Famer. But if Rob can get you 30 minutes a night and score 15 points, 5 assists, and 1 turnover, like, that guy works so hard and tries so hard on defense, I think he'll hold up. That solves pretty much all the problems, because then you have a dynamic point guard that can create his own shot, run the offense. Ant can do Ant things. Mike's coming off the bench, and even though he wasn't a great point guard as a starter, I think most teams would kill for a Mike Conley off the bench. Rob's just got to be good, which that's the exciting part for this season, because you're looking at a guy that has all the confidence in the world. He worked his butt off behind the scenes last season. He has Pablo Prigioni as his personal kind of development coach with the Wolves. Chris Finch is a really good offensive coach, and you have Mike Conley, one of the best undersized point guards to ever do it. Everything's in place for him to be good. It's now just on him, which, what more can you want as a fan than seeing a guy prove everybody right or wrong? And for Rob, I mean, I think he relishes in this. I think he waited all last season for his chance, and it never really came because they were so good. And now he's going to get his chance. So he can kind of, put your money where your mouth is, or whatever. He's not betting money on this, but like, he's going to have this opportunity to show everyone, like, yeah, I was the 8th overall pick for a reason.
He might not be betting, but Malik Beasley might be betting. So maybe that's what's happening right now. But I think there's a lot of great points what you mentioned. I think, of course, if Rob Dillingham is really good at basketball and he could be a legitimate starter, a primary playmaker, it simplifies so many things, and you could do so many more things with Anthony Edwards, because Chris Finch always says that he loves having somebody who can make plays, because it puts Anthony Edwards in positions to be more efficient, right? Because he's a great shooter off the catch. Whenever he cuts, something good happens. Doesn't do it enough, but something good always happens with Anthony Edwards when he cuts. And I just think, with the way this team's going, and Oklahoma City is just going to be a juggernaut. They're not going away.
Yep.
They're not going away. I think for Minnesota, their internal development to get to that level, as much as I love Rob Dillingham, as much as I love Terrence Shannon, it has to start with Anthony Edwards might be the best player in the league. And
Yep.
that's even how as great as Anthony Edwards is, that is super hard to ask for when you're playing with in the same era as Jokic and an up and coming Wemby and even Luka to an extent and Shea and all these guys. But Anthony Edwards, if he just suddenly adopted B plus level playmaking, which is kind of what Shea is right now, because Shea in
Mhm.
the playoffs, we saw even in moments, Shea's a good passer, but he's not playing 3D chess like Luka, and that got exposed at times against Denver at times, and especially against the Pacers. If Anthony Edwards can get to that level where he's just, I could be a primary playmaker, but then I can play off of a point guard, you're putting yourself in a position where you almost always can play in a spot where there's almost no flaw on the court. Because if Anthony Edwards can play make, and you can throw Shannon on the court, and you could throw Dante and these other guys, then suddenly it's like if playmaking is not a big issue in those lineups, then the size is an A. The defense can be an A. The athleticism, the spacing, all of it, it could be an A. And I think that optionality is how you compete against Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City, they add Hartenstein, they add, Alex Caruso, but they also moved off Josh Giddey because they bet
Mhm.
on Shea Gilgeous-Alexander being a full-time point guard. And I think we're in this weird time with Minnesota basketball where we need that conversation. If Anthony Edwards can make that transition and he didn't have the natural reps at point guard like Shea did at Kentucky, but if he can make those strides and be that level of playmaker, all of a sudden Minnesota's portability and its versatility with its lineups becomes right there with Oklahoma City. And that's how you could be a potential anecdote to a team like that.
Well, and with Ant, it's I mean, he's in Atlanta right now. He's about to go on like a Chinese basketball tour with Adidas. I think Harden's going to be there too, actually. So that would be kind of interesting because
Jiggly Boy's
Ant
out there too. Shout out to him.
Ant Ant's path to being like a playmaker is probably like Harden's, where he goes from being a high volume kind of scorer to using that high volume scoring to set up other players. Um, but Ant's working, and I haven't heard what he's working on because I think the team tries to give him some space in the offseason because he's a busy guy. But I think anything's possible with that kid. I know kind of on his to-do list, if you want to say that Finch mentioned was having more of a closing game where he has like a move to get like a series of moves to get to. Like right now, the step back three and just kind of driving at the rim and throwing up a basket is his quote unquote bag. But having a more of a turnaround, more of a mid-range, a stop and pop, a different footwork, things like that. So that end of games, he has more of a series of things he can go to. I mean, the other thing was he was not great from the mid-range last year, which part of that is Julius, part of that is Rudy, like just in taking up more space. But Ant needs to be a good mid-range shooter. Like it's the same thing with playmaking. If Ant all of a sudden is a threat on a post up in the mid-range, it opens up the corners because they're going to start sending help. I just think there's a lot of little areas that he can grow in. The other thing, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, is Jaden and Nas both in this cat trade kind of got screwed at the beginning of the season. Um, you know, we heard all summer that Jaden had been working on his, you know, driving game and kind of his post game and getting to the basket more. We heard all summer that Nas had really been working on his ball handling and trying to be a little stronger around the rim. And then the season started and we didn't see any of that from either of them until like February.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be that Jaden, what he did at the end of the season is repeatable. And Jaden is a 17 point a game scorer now. It could be that Nas Reed, there's going to be more ups than downs. and he's really worked on his ability to dribble and drive. And what we saw at the end of the season from Nas is repeatable, which if those two guys are both scoring 17 points a game, that's another way you can kind of match OKC's firepower a little bit. I don't know. What
Mhm.
are your thoughts?
I would love for all of that to happen at the same time, first of all. That would be my first option. But to finish the Edwards point right before we get there, you mentioned all the things like the mid range, some of the pacing, your go to spot, and the playmaking. I think it's also, on one hand, so unfair to ask a 24-year-old to fix all of those in one summer. It might
Yep.
be one of those things where he fixes one at a time in the summers, and then by the time he's 27, that's when he's ready to maybe take the reins as one of the three best players in the world.